Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I'm your host, James O'Hagan. I'm here today with David Gugliotti. He is David, you're a bit of a free agent right now, but that's not to say anything bad because you were the former director of esports for Oregon, University of Oregon, and also you just participated or actually had one of the first esports collegiate combines in the United States down in Indianapolis.
Yep, absolutely.
And your background with esports, again, going back to into it, is very diverse and very fluid. But let's talk about this event that just happened in Indianapolis. Okay, again, we're talking about something that was planned to be on site, was meant to include panelists. In fact, I was excited to go. My friend Gabby, who works for Gio, was, I know, very instrumental in trying to get things arranged. And in fact, I did do a panel online for them. But there was a lot that went into that. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, by the way, we're not doing it face to face anymore. So let's talk about that event. How did your involvement come into that event? And how did you guys so successfully pull it off?
Yeah. So shout out to Gabby first and foremost. So I got connected with them through Sean with Gio as well. He reached out to me and just kind of wanted to pick my brain on some stuff, get some thoughts and what I was doing at UO and everything like that. And then he reached out to me and said, hey, look, we need somebody to help with the collegiate experience. And you used to be somebody that did that, so you could help us kind of mold the event into what it should look like for the directors, the coaches, the college staff that are going to participate to make sure that they get what they want out of it. So with my, firsthand perspective from there, I helped shape that, help build that. I worked with some schools to help bring them on board. I worked with Gabby and a bunch of other people over there in their, unique roles like that. And man, it was such an awesome event. We had a very, very short amount of time to get it done. Like you said, originally it was supposed to be an in-person event. The plan is hopefully to get that done moving forward. But this year, with everything going on, we had to bring it online. And just the success that we had was incredible with such a short amount of time that we had to pull it all off in.
Yeah, it's something that I know that a lot of us have struggled with, especially in education, about how do we shift everything online. I know with our Wisconsin State Association right now, we are bringing together kids from across the state of Wisconsin and trying to find ways to get them connected in these virtual spaces. Again, trying to bridge the technology gap, the digital poverty issues that many of us face. Right. But with regards to this event, I mean, describe what a high school student was expected to do, or how could they participate in this event to, I guess, be found by colleges? Because it's something that's a big problem, I guess. It's a problem not like, oh my gosh, we're crushed by it, but it's a problem like, how do we find or recruit kids appropriately and specifically to colleges that maybe fit them well?
Right. And what you just said, that, there's kind of a gap there for that process, for the students to find the schools and the schools to find the students. That's part of the reason why I wanted to come on board and help out with that, is because I saw that, me coming from traditional athletics as well, that's all, squared away. It's been, there's a process, there's a pipeline like that. That's been there forever. But with esports, with how quickly it's growing, that hasn't really been established like that yet. So I was thinking, geez, something like this really needs to be done. When they approached me with it, I said, okay, here, it's go time. Let's make it happen. So for like a student's perspective, a high school student's perspective, is the goal of the event was for them to discover schools and schools to discover them. So there was panels they could participate in. There were meet and greet sessions, like speed dating sessions, where, they would sign up for XYZ university session, go in there, a representative from the school, usually like a director, a coach, an admissions staff member, multiple of those people would be there. They could kind of say, hey, here's who I am. I'm interested in your school. Boom, that would send them over, their GPA, their stats, what game they play, et cetera, so they can have those conversations and then take them offline. We also partnered up with Super League, where they did some feature streams that showed some actual competition. And it was actually fascinating. I think it was one of the Rocket League players got offered a scholarship like on the spot from a school. Nice. So we really tried to take that traditional college fair atmosphere and bring it online, where, if you in person go to a college fair, there's kind of like a main hall and then the little smaller rooms that each school is in individually. We try to recreate that online for all the hundreds of kids to hundreds of students to participate in, learn about schools, right? A lot of these schools that have esports programs are a little bit smaller. Maybe they're in remote parts of the country. It's hard for them to recruit. right? That was a pain point for the colleges, and this sort of allowed them to do that, especially, with everything being remote right now. It made it even more difficult for them. So this provided that avenue to still get in touch with students all over the country.
I remember the first conversation that I had with Josh Knutson back in 2016 when he just sent me an email based off of a newspaper story that we ran when we launched our team at the Walden School. And it said, hey, do you have any kids who are interested in scholarship opportunities at the University of Jamestown? And I'm thinking like Jamestown, Virginia. Nope, Jamestown, North Dakota. And you're right. That it isn't like an Oregon or an Alabama or a Notre Dame that can go and recruit, like even at Illinois Wesleyan. Let's take Callum, for example.
Right, Callum's, yep.
Callum's got a limited budget. He's a director of esports, but, he can't necessarily travel cross country multiple times and do multiple visits and wine and dine kids and take them everywhere like big college football, basketball programs, or even, in some cases, softball or even women's basketball. So it does make sense to have an event like this. And excuse me. So I love the fact that that's the goal, is to help them. It's almost like a dating matchmaking thing. Now, one of the things I know that's kind of a concern, especially when we think about like, let's take a game like Overwatch, which is highly team based. Usually you have to have chemistry and things like that with other people. There's also the issue of, say, in some of these all-star, I guess you could call it like an all-star combine in a lot of ways, of kids trying to play themselves up and look good for school. Right. But I didn't get a sense that there was a whole lot of that, like not like with basketball or with football. Is that the case? Did I read that correctly?
Absolutely. So this event, the word combine, when people hear the word combine, the first thing they think is like the NFL combine, the elite, highest, best of the best of the best. This event was more of a college fair. We had players that were, bronze players. We had players that were challenger players. It was less about the competition side of it and more about the academic side, the scholastic side, the finding that fit for the next 4 years of your life at a school. Yeah, of course, there were like the elite players that they were going to get scholarship offers, but then there was also students involved that, maybe they didn't want to be on a competitive team. They just wanted to work on broadcasting or graphic design or event coordination. Some of the schools involved weren't even like sanctioned programs. They were just the clubs from those schools that wanted to try to get some more kids to come there to be a part of their club. So we really wanted to kind of have like a universal fit to it, where there's a couple other similar events that are like all-star tournaments, right? They only have the best of the best of the best. And that wipes out so much of the opportunity that's there for students that, sure, maybe you're not, a grandmaster player, but you can still contribute. You can still have gaming and esports as a core piece of your collegiate experience. And we wanted to cater to the wider group of people than say, hey, you must be X rank or, take a hike.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that I like about this too, and again, talking with Sean and Gabby and now with you, is that there's a lot of these collegiate events that are starting to pop up. This is becoming, I guess, because it is a problem. How do we match these schools together? There is a money-making opportunity. There is a way to run these combines. There's a couple of events that are running, though, right? There's some questionable, I guess we could say, connections because there is a lot of influencer money that's coming into esports, and that influencer money is starting to trickle down through collegiate and into the K-12 sphere. Right. The thing that I really liked about this was, again, it was education. As you just said, this was education focused. Right. It was not so much, hey, here's scholarships. Now go out there and fight everybody around you for these scholarships. It was, hey, we want to introduce you to this school, and the school wants to introduce themselves to you, and hopefully we can make a match. It's the kind of right mindset, I guess, that we need because again, our K-12 programs are not pipelines to the pros in any sense. Right. Hopefully, in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Yeah. Spot on.
So with that said, what are some, I guess, the differences because again, you talked about, like, for example, the clubs, and I think club esports at a collegiate level, research is showing us and experience is showing us that it's a very different thing than a varsity program. What would you say was it like a 50-50 split at the combine, or was it more like programs working more towards varsity? I mean, what was the sense that you got from the scene, if you will, of attendees?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can dive into the details of the difference between like a varsity program and a club program. Like when I was a student at UO, I was the president of our club. I was also a competitor on our team. So like I have the perspective of, the community member, the club member, the competitive player, and then the staff member on the other side. And we can jump in that later. But as far as the combine goes, the split was definitely probably 70%, varsity, like sanctioned programs that had, recognition, support, a staff member, even if it was a part-time guy or gal for the school. And then it was probably 20% clubs, like the club programs where, maybe they're not supported by the school, but it maybe just be either just student groups or something above that, or club sports. And then it was like 10% schools that were, we want to do this. We're not super sure. We just kind of want to see what's going on. This is a good place for us to learn about a whole bunch of other schools, like Big East being the example as a conference that's taken a strong approach to it. Yeah, I got to moderate the panel for that. That was really interesting to chat with them. So it was a nice split. Again, definitely skewing towards schools that were, actively trying to recruit, whether that's for admissions purposes or for competitive purposes or both. 70% that, 20% of the club sport, and then 10% we're doing something. We just want to see what's out there so we can learn a little bit more. It was a good mix.
And I think that opens up a lot of eyes too. I think it's important for educators to realize that, there are scholarship opportunities, but things I tell people is there's scholarship opportunities, but don't think of this again like basketball or football, which are full rides and I mean, everything's paid for plus dorm and everything. A lot of these are attractive opportunities for kids, but even some of these small schools where they're offering maybe $10,000 or $15,000, you're still going to come away with having to spend $10,000 to $15,000 a year for a program. So it's really important to research that. But even that, I mean, the club experience, as you said, some kids really love a club experience. They don't want that varsity as much as they want to be able to create, design, be fluid, find new titles, promote new titles. I love the fact that they were a part of this. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit into how you ended up, because you did lead us kind of into that. The difference between the club and the varsity experience at the collegiate level. Because again, you did start with, as you said, you were the president of the club at UW. Sorry.
Oh man. Oh boy.
No, wait. And I do have a relative. I do have a cousin who graduated from Washington. But when I say UW, I mean Wisconsin. That's the real UW.
Okay. All right. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah. Okay. But at Oregon, University of Oregon, how did that, I guess, your involvement start? Club president, and then transitioned into, it looked like, a varsity program.
Yeah. So I'm from Connecticut. I was born and raised there my whole life. I was looking to go get my master's. I wanted to get my MBA, and I was looking for schools to go to, and everything about Oregon just clicked because I wanted it in sports marketing. What a better place to go than Oregon.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wait, let's stop on that for a second. For the people who don't know, maybe it's people watching this around wherever you are, or maybe you're not involved with scholastic or collegiate sports. University of Oregon is also the home of the founder of Nike. Is that correct?
Yeah, Phil Knight. Yep.
Yeah. So when it comes to apparel, when it comes to taking care of the school, like it used to be that the University of Oregon football team had what looked like Donald Duck on the side of their helmet.
Right.
And now when you watch an Oregon football game, you don't know what's going to come out of the tunnel. There could be, there's usually a different uniform for every game with Nike apparel and everything else. So you're talking about a school that has not just a flashy teams. You're talking about a school that has Nike level investment directly into the school. So,
yeah, a lot of our athletics teams are like the beta testers for new Nike product. So like the new cleats, the football team gets them first. The new bats, the softball team gets them first and gets to kind of do testing and see what works, what doesn't work on that. So that's for the athletes, that's pretty cool.
Okay, but for again, you said you were going there for an MBA with a hope of looking at something in a sports marketing background. So that's a perfect match right there. I just wanted to set that.
Absolutely, yeah, it was a great match. And when I first got there, I had just left working in traditional athletics and football. And gaming and esports was, a big piece of my life, my entire life. So when you get there, the first thing they do is, hey, what do you want to do when you get out of here? And I was like, okay, I either want to stay in football or I want to go into esports. But I think I want to go into esports a little bit more. And, my first meeting with our kind of program person there, she was like, go for esports. I said, okay, we're doing it. Here we go.
And what year was this about?
2017.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a two-year program.
Okay.
So I went out there, locked in esports, And right away, I said, what do we have going on campus? Because I knew collegiate esports was a thing. I saw it on TV a couple times back in the day on ESPN for like Heroes of the Dorm. And I said, I know that this school has to have something. Got involved, went to the club meeting that first night. It was, at the time, it was just the League of Legends club. And my buddy, well, he wasn't my friend then, but Tim was the president. And we talked a little bit before. I was the only grad student in the room. I was the old guy in the room.
The old man.
Yeah.
What is this old guy doing here?
Yeah, seriously. And right off the bat, Tim was like, so you're a grad student. You want to talk to everybody? I was like, oh, sure. Haha. So, I just kind of talked about being old and a grad student and all that. And then Tim came up to me after and was like, hey, look, I'm a senior. I'm going to graduate. I love this, but like, I need to work on finding a job. Do you just kind of want to take over for me? I said, sure, absolutely. So it didn't officially go into transition until the next year, but right then and there, sort of when I became president of the League of Legends Club. And myself and a bunch of our students involved, we worked to sort of rebrand to be like a gaming club, to be more inclusive of everybody, because we had Call of Duty players coming by, Overwatch players coming by, tabletop players coming by, and they're like, hey, like, is it cool if we hang out? Like, we know this is just Lee. We're like, yeah, like, of course, everybody's welcome. So we wanted to kind of be more indicative of what we were. We were inclusive of the greater gaming community. That includes tabletop and stuff like that too. Throughout that time, our mission was, let's grow this as big as we can, put as much positive pressure on the school as possible to get us to things that we want, which was space, money, staff, et cetera, to kind of do what a lot of the other schools were doing. That first year, I always forget, with this one day, we called it the field trip day. We went to like every single building on campus and said, hey, this is who we are. We need space. Like, can you give us like a room? Can we buy a room? How does this work? And everywhere we went was, that's awesome. Sorry, I can't help you. That's awesome. Sorry, I'm not the person that can do that. It's awesome, but sorry. I don't want to say no. No makes it sound negative, but it was, hey, I can't help you. I'm sorry. But we'll keep you in mind. So, and that was kind of when, we were kind of down on ourselves. That was my like go-to was, look, we're getting our name out there. That today we're not getting the yes, but when that person talks to the other person, and they all have talked to us, they're going to say something's going on here. We need to figure this out. And my whole structure was, look, if we want to be taken as legitimate, we need to brand ourselves and treat this like we're the football team. Everything I did was the brand, the voice, the marketing of the football team.
Yeah, we have to stop on that point. I think that's really important. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Lindsay Migliori was on as well. And she made a big point about, if you want to be taken seriously in this, take yourself seriously. Yep. Like, it starts with you. It starts with your actions. Like, are you practicing? Are you getting your sleep? Are you drinking water? Are you watching your game films? Are you just sitting there just wishing for it to happen? And it's not uncommon that I've seen too with some, especially at big schools. Let's my own alma mater, Purdue, is a big school. But when I look at the landscape of big school esports, by and large, I'm not saying Oregon is this, but I'm saying by and large, it's still kind of like a niche thing. It's not treated seriously, and a lot of it, I think, is the perception that some of the people who are doing it, as you're saying, we have to take this as serious as what the football team was. I don't think people have that mindset yet at a big school, but at a small school where this is a big major part of campus culture, that's the mindset that they have that you're just describing right there. And I think that's really a really important key point to take away right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That was the reason why I said, look, this is why we need to take it seriously. Because if we don't take ourselves seriously, nobody else is going to take us seriously. If it's all memes and jokes, and yeah, you got to have fun with what you're doing. But everything we do, we need to treat it like it's its own business model. Like our vertical of the club, our vertical of competitive, our vertical of community, we had to nurture them all and treat them appropriately, which as the process went along, we realized we couldn't serve our competitive teams and our club members the same way. Right? They're two different groups of people that come for two different things. Some of our competitive players wanted no part of coming to club. They just wanted to play and win and practice and scrim and film review, and that's it. Our club players, they didn't want to compete. They wanted to come, have fun, make friends, kind of relax from the stresses of college and stuff like that. So in between,
both of those are important to have.
Absolutely.
As I've told people, especially with high school, because the tendency is to see it all, an school administrator will just see it all together and just go, well, we can just have our gaming club become our esports. No. Don't do that. Totally different style of play, totally different goals, totally different mindset. You'll scare away those kids who need that space just as much as our competitive kids need that space. So again, I'm glad you're making these key points. These are all awesome points that you're making right now. So that's number 2. Yeah. So we got to have a third because I can't have 2 only. Okay. No,
I gotcha. You'll see number 3 in a second. And you're right. They're 2 different types of people that have 2 different wants. Right, you can't serve them the same dinner. They want 2 different dinners. You got to make sure you give them what they want.
Just like my house.
So in between year 1 and year 2 of grad school is a 2-year program. So everything we talked about was year 1. Mm-hmm. In between year 1 and year 2, I worked with our club sports program to pull like our competitive groups out of the student club and have them be in club sports. Where I was founder and president of UO Esports, which is where our competitive group lived at the time. And they were initially hesitant to bring us on board because they were like, we definitely could do this, but we're afraid somebody's going to come steal you from us. We're going to put time into you guys, and then somebody's going to come steal you from us. And
wait, who was saying this?
Our club sports group. As a joke, I'm good friends with Ben. Yeah, they were afraid they were going to, bring us on board. We were going to be the new club sport, and then boom, somebody else like athletics or somebody was going to steal us from them. And
gotcha.
There goes their hard work. So we did that. Now, on the same token, in that summer, I was hired by the school as like an internship to do a research project on the landscape of collegiate esports. Now, I knew that this was more than just a research project, right? If the school hired me and another student to put this presentation together, this was a sales pitch, right? They were
brilliant
interested.
Way to look at it too.
Yep. And I told from day 1, I said, look, this is our chance. If the school is giving us money to research this, that means they're interested. That means they may want to do something with this. That's what we want and all of our students want. Let's make sure we deliver. So we put that presentation together. We presented it to the school in November of my second year of grad school. And at that time, our club sports group was running off. They were doing their own thing, competing. Our club was growing and growing and growing. I was overseeing all of it at once while still being a graduate student. And we knocked the presentation out of the park. We presented some pretty high ups at the school, and things went well. A few of them wanted to meet with us after. We were told, hey, hold off, don't meet with them right away. And we were like, no, but like they want to talk to us again. And Kathy Stanley, who was my boss at the time, amazing woman. She was probably gonna get her job title wrong, Associate Vice President and Chief of Staff for Student Life.
Okay.
The director of our student center, Lori, was the one that wanted to meet with us. And we're like, oh my gosh, student center, they have rooms in there. Maybe they're going to want to give us one. Kathy was like, nope, don't meet with Lori yet. And I'm like, no, but Kathy's like, I know, just pump the brakes. Okay. Like, ooh. And it was hard. It was hard for me to see that opportunity right there and not like, go around my boss and meet with the person that I thought held the keys to the kingdom for us.
Well, let's talk about that just for a key moment. I think it's important. I know you're coming up on another point and you're building up, but it is very enticing right now because a lot of us who are gamers, a lot of people who are involved in esports have been ignored for so long. All of a sudden you're pretty. All of a sudden you are the ugly kid who now was short and fat, and one summer you grew 6 inches and you lost 100 pounds and you ditched the glasses for contact lenses. And you don't know how to talk to girls yet or boys, but now you're getting attention. And so what I'm sensing here is she's trying to get you to not jump at the first shiny thing that comes your way. Is that I hope I'm getting the right vibe off this.
Yeah, pretty much. And for anyone that's listening to this that is going to be in those shoes where you're presenting to school staff, there's certain things they look for, right? There's buzzwords that they want to hear. Make sure you're actually delivering on those and you don't just put them in. When you say student engagement, show them how you've done student engagement. When you talk about career opportunities, tell them how you've built career opportunities and other schools are building career opportunities. When you talk about a connection to campus, what does that look like, right? Those phrases to the people that mattered, that's what they wanted to hear. That my boss, Kathy, actually made a joke during that. When I used some of the, student engagement, career opportunities, she started laughing. She's like, I knew I picked the right guy for the job because those are the words that we look for. And one of the big things that got us probably the flashy moment for us was while we were presenting, we showed what other schools were doing, the UCIs and the Boise's and the school and that school. And we did this by design. This is kind of my marketing background coming out here.
Wait, I'll let you give it away. I have a guess.
Sure.
I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to go say whether it was right or wrong. So go ahead.
Okay. So the last slide, when we were talking about other schools, we said, and now the premier esports college in Eugene, Oregon, Northwest Christian University. Boom, put them up on the screen. And our vice president of the school slapped the desk and said, "You got to be kidding me. They're doing this and we're not." Because he thought it was going to be us that we put up there, and it wasn't.
I'll be honest. It was not that. What I was actually thinking was University of Washington, because they developed.
Yeah, we had them in there. Yep, we had them in there.
But I
too.
thought it was going to be like, and here's the premier West Coast. Collegiate program in this area. Not because you're not a UCI or anything, but again, Washington.
We had UW in there. Yeah, we definitely had UW in there too. We had like 6 or 7 schools in there, but showing that, look, there's a school 300 feet across the street from our school that is doing something we are not doing, stealing our players and our students to go there. Other schools are taking kids from Eugene, Oregon. My good buddy Gedhawk, he ended up at Boise. He born and raised in Eugene, wanted nothing more to be a Duck. Boise offered him a scholarship for league. Boom, he's over there. And so we use those stories to say, look, we're losing kids in Eugene, not in Oregon, not on the West Coast, down the street, because we don't have this and they do. That's something the schools think about.
David, that is such a really good point. Again, about just, it's one thing to have a school that people from out of state want to attend. It's another thing to make sure that all the kids who live in a small radius around you look and go, that's where I want to go.
Right.
And, where I live in Southeast Wisconsin, we talk about the brain drain, where a lot of kids will go to school in our area. And then when they go to college, they'll go to Madison. Okay. Or if they go out of state, they very rarely ever come back. So that's a really great point that you're bringing up about the importance of, again, making sure that we're diversifying opportunities for student participation, that you're giving kids something that they see themselves being a part of. For me at Purdue, it was the marching band. To walk onto campus and have 400 friends on my first day to hang out with was an awesome experience. This is, again, you nailed it right on the head. That is a fantastic point to make, that the school across the street, the little school that very few people have ever heard of outside of Eugene, are saying, you know what, that's where I'm going for my esports experience.
Absolutely. And that was the thing that kind of solidified, okay, like we kind of need to do this. So fast forward a couple months, I'm getting close to graduating. We've had tremendous success. Competitive teams are winning championships. Our club is just growing leaps and bounds. We're doing all sorts of like experiential learning opportunities. We went to LCS. We went to Boise to go play there. We did all this great stuff for our students. And my former boss, Kathy, sent me an email. She said, "Hey, David, like I know you're probably graduating soon. Just want to see if you have a job lined up yet or what." And I had one offer from one college in the middle of nowhere that like I wasn't super excited about, but it was the only thing I had. I was like, well, I guess, this is it. And she's like, "I want to talk to you about like summer work." I said, well, maybe they'll kind of bring me on for the same thing that we did last summer. So she called me in and said, "Hey, look, we found a space for you guys." So, whoa, what? She's like, "Yeah, it's going to be in the student center." That's why I didn't want you to talk to Laura yet, because we didn't have it 100% locked down yet. It was 90%, but we didn't want to tell you you got it and then say, "Sorry, you don't." So that's why she wanted to talk to me, to say, "Hey, we got space for you." But it wasn't like a done deal. And Kathy, just to be safe, wanted to make sure it was a done deal. So I said, great, like, cool. Like, okay, maybe they'll bring me on. I'll do some like maybe, consulting type thing where, these are computers that we need. This is what it should look like. So, right, that the night before, I remember I couldn't sleep because I was nervous about going to that meeting, because I was like, all right, cool, it'll be a nice little summer job for me, whatever. I was talking to my buddy Matt on Discord, and it was like 3 a.m, whatever, real gamer hours. And
I was doing it last night playing Hades.
Yeah, there you go.
That game is so amazing. You lose track. I lost 6 hours at a blip. Go ahead.
There you go. And I said, Matt, do you think like they're gonna go all in on this? Do you think that's gonna happen? He's like, I don't know, man, but that would be cool. I was like, yeah, that is cool, but we were probably 3 or 4 years out from that. So whatever. So I roll into the meeting and they sit me down and say, okay, so we got the space and we need some help trying to put it together. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly down to help out with that. And they said, oh, but like we also decided we're going to start an esports program and we need you to be the director of it. And I said, whoa, holy cow, like we did it. Like
Yeah.
this is what we wanted, and it's here. I was like, wait, is this for real? Like, are you kidding me? And I completely forgot everything else that they said in the rest of that meeting because my head was spinning so much that I had to email them the next day and say, hey, I have a whole bunch of questions, and I'm sure we talked about it all, but like, holy cow, I was so excited. Man, it felt so good that all of the work that we put in was rewarded in that instance. Yeah, I was the one getting the job for that, right? But it felt so nice that we were going to have the space. We were going to have the recognition. We were going to have the legitimacy and really be our own program in the school because that's what we wanted, and we did it.
At one of the biggest institutions, most successful institutions in the United States with, again, University of Oregon branding. I mean, very few people can touch that. So
yeah, we couldn't.
And again, looking at the space that was developed, I mean, there was no doubts that was a University of Oregon space. So if you could talk about just briefly that experience of design, creation, development of that space.
Yeah. So my first day of work was June 21st, which was my birthday. So happy birthday to me. My first day of being the director there at UO. So it was an exciting day for me. So actually that was the first thing we started working on. That very day we met with our architect. We had a couple student leaders for esports come by, and he had a whole bunch of pictures of other spaces, athletic spaces, NASA stuff, like all sorts of different spaces for us to pull inspiration from.
Sure.
And the thing that we all came to the conclusion of was we want something that's congruent with the rest of the school, that what it is. It's a gaming space, but it's done tastefully. We didn't want, computer chips on the ceiling and RGB everywhere and all this crazy stuff. And you see some schools doing that, and maybe that's what their communities want, but that wasn't for us, right? We wanted something
much LED. Much LED.
We wanted something that would fit in one of our academic buildings, in one of our athletic buildings, in the student center. We wanted it to fit in. Yeah, we wanted to have a little bit of gamer swag to it, but we wanted it to be congruent with the rest of what we were doing, and boom, off and running. We had the trees cut out because what's more Oregon than trees? That was natural wood. Yeah, we had LEDs in there, but guess what? They were green and yellow. I mean, they could have been any color, but we kept them green and yellow for school colors. We wanted it to be a place that was welcoming. We didn't want it to scream hardcore gamers only. We wanted students to be able to come there and hang out, whether they were serious gamers, whether they were just spectators, whether they wanted just to hang out with friends. We wanted to be open to everybody, and it was.
That's an important invitation as well too. Again, because again, a lot of these spaces where we practice, we call it not your parents' basement. It's a great place.
Yep.
But you have to enter it through a red door at the back of an alley.
Right.
And for some of our female scholar gamers, they don't really do well with that first invitation. So what you're talking about is really important as well too. As you said, it fits in with the university. So it's not like going to be this, it stands out, but it's not going to be like garishly like screaming, as you said, hardcore gamers only, nobody else need apply.
Right. Yeah. And the design of the room, and this was our wonderful architects that we worked with, did that. When you first walked in the room, there was the front desk there, and then it was couches and a TV. So like welcoming, like your living room. As you progress further into the room, now is when you start to get into the, the high-end PC stuff. So it was almost as you went through the room, your gaming experience leveled up, no pun intended, as you went through that.
That's a great way to say it, though. I mean, it really is. And again, we even design libraries. What you're talking about too is like, in library design, the front of the room is the front of the library. Not, the traditional libraries, no, but new libraries, it's like it's busy, it's active. There's a lot of noise. But as you work your way back, you find that more traditional library space, that quietness, that, isolation, if you will. Because there's some people who just love that. They need that experience. And again, for some people, they want that library that's more like a marketplace. So again, what you're talking about, again, that invitation that, hey, welcome to your living room. And here you can hang out and wait or you could come back here and get into some hardcore Overwatch or something, whatever. That's great.
And that was by design. That was all because we wanted it to be a space for everybody. We wanted people, sure, our location was not the greatest. We were in the bottom corner of the student center. So like if you weren't going there to go where we were, you probably weren't going to walk by. We actually had a ton of people walk by because they heard about it, which was really cool because they would pop in and say, oh, wow, like this is really cool in here. Like it wasn't just, a glorified computer lab. right? It was we called it the esports lounge because that's what it was. It was a lounge for students to go. Yeah, our varsity teams went in there and they played and practiced and did all that stuff, and you could watch that. That was another thing. We wanted accessibility to our varsity teams because we found that some of our freshmen the year before, when they got to watch us play live at one of our LAN events, they were like, oh my gosh, there's like the varsity League of Legends team. Like, I want to meet them. Sort of like if you went to a football game and had access to the football players. So that was a small piece of it, but we wanted it to be open and inclusive and have access. No matter who you are, you could get connected as deep or as little as you wanted. And that was a big part of what we did to pack the house. I mean, the day of the opening day, first of all, I was unbelievably nervous that day because we didn't know, are there going to be 10 people? Are there going to be 20 people? We were like, let's hope we get, 30, 40 people in there. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of people. Like the line went down, out, around the door. It was like a 3-hour wait time to get in. It was unbelievable, the amount of people that came. And it blew me away. I told like our varsity players, like, hey, be there. Like, come on, be there. But they couldn't even get in because there's so many other people trying to get in to be a part of it. And it was absolutely incredible.
And capacity was what? I think it was 25 PCs. Is that right?
Yep. So we had 25 PCs and then 3 console stations. So we were well over probably fire code capacity for certain.
But what's interesting about all this too, David, is the journey in all this, because your journey did not start with harassing staff. Well, right. I mean, I wouldn't say harassing, but you took a very systematic approach in working through the system. You used the community that was there and said, what can we do with this community to take it to the next level? And again, honor the community that was there, not do away with it, but provide them, bring them along too as well in all this. You worked with the university people. You took the advice of what they gave you. And again, it was, there's a lot of schools that go down this road who do not include student voice. They do not include student advocates. And it's hard for educators to sometimes remember, you are a grad student though, but 18-year-olds are still adults. These are kids who are, voting, going off to war, can go, take jobs, get cars, whatever, without having a parent's signature. So it's excellent to hear how student driven the process was, but it was a partnership. It wasn't we're going to do a sit-in until you give us what we want. It was like, hey, we're all getting this together. We like where this looks. Let's do this as a team. And I really appreciate that part of the story.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest pieces was, throughout everything that we did. And then obviously when I got hired as a director, I leaned on my students for things where I needed them, right? Some stuff I knew, hey, this has to be like a university staff type thing that we got to deal with. But for as much as I could, it was, what do our people want? Because if we're not serving them, we're not really serving anybody. Understanding that there's different voices for different people. One of the with how hard I worked on that, one of the best days, and I always tell the story because it's so meaningful to me. I was like, what's going to be like the coolest thing? Yeah, winning championships was great, right? That was awesome. Like the opening the esports lounge was great. The business conference that we did was awesome. One day I was just randomly down there. I was changing out some receipt paper or something like that. And this girl comes up to me. She says, hey, are you David? I said, yeah. Hey, like, what's up? She's like, oh, hi. She's like, I'm an international student from Korea. I said, oh, that's cool. She's like, thank you. I said, you're welcome. Like for what? She's like, thank you for building this. She's like, I don't know anyone here. I'm from the other side of the world. I am super alone. And seeing this makes me feel like I'm back home. And I was like, there it is. There's the moment that makes it all worth it right there, was that little tiny slice of comfort that, the work that we did provided a student on the other side of the world all by herself, doesn't know anybody. It gave her a little slice of comfort. That right there was worth more. It was worth more than the championships that we won and more than all the cool stuff that we did, because it brought joy to somebody else's life,
And what that also does too now, it's not just that you brought her joy. I mean, that's a huge important thing. But she tells friends back home.
Yep.
Now it's like, hey, that thing that we all love, the PC bang, thing in South Korea, that's here now. Yep. You can come to Oregon. Again, it's that diversifying opportunities for student participation. Again, for me, it's the marching band. For you, what was your thing in college that you would go and say that was the thing that kept me in? Because it wasn't always classes. I know most people say it's not classes that kept me in college.
No, for college for me it was weightlifting, 100%.
And did you oh my God, at Purdue, ours was in a basement with like, it looked like something out of a prison weight room. It was like pipes everywhere and everything.
Yep.
But was that a nice, I mean, was it the culture? Was it the facility? What was the thing that you liked about that?
So it definitely wasn't the facility. So this is for undergrad. I want to be clear. This is for undergrad.
Sure.
We had kind of like a room that was, pipes in the ceiling and just kind of what you said. And then towards the end of my undergrad, they moved it into this big wide open space that had all sorts of equipment on it. And then they built like a second gym that was like a little bit further away that had like all brand new equipment in it. So it was just the people that I met, the friends that I met through there, even though, we only saw each other for, an hour a day when we were in the gym, and you didn't really talk that much, right? You're there working out. It was cool. Like that's
in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. It was cool to have that, sort of home base, a place that connected me to, because my undergrad was very, very small. There wasn't a whole lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have something that I could connect to. And that connection is what I tried to create with esports at University of Oregon. Is I wanted to, because I connected to that in grad school. That was my connection. Yeah, football. I love football more than anything. Everyone in the world is connected to football there. It's an amazing place, the best place to be for that. But I wanted to create something for other people because, not every person that's into sports is into esports. Like when I was growing up, and I'm sure it happened to you too. Oh, you play video games, you're a nerd. Ha ha ha. Well, fast forward, now I'm working on esports. And I was like, man, did you guys see the football game last night? And they're like, oh, you like sports? Haha, you're a nerd. I'm like, oh no, I can't escape it no matter what. So it was kind of interesting to see that come full circle. But again, it was so cool what we did there. It was great. The championships we won, the events that we did, the community that we built, the involvement that we had, we created jobs. We had to have students work at the front desk. Boom. Now we created jobs. We did so much cool stuff. It wasn't all easy. There was a lot of brick walls that I ran face first into, never having worked in higher ed before. One thing you talked about was branding, right? We couldn't even use our own logo because, that was a 6-month process for us to be able to use one of the school logos.
Really?
The Oregon IP. Yeah, that was an interesting one. It was a lesson I learned. The O that you can see on my shirt here, the school doesn't own that. Nike does.
Really?
So because we weren't in athletics, we couldn't use this. We couldn't use the duck face that you usually see like on ESPN either, because that's part of athletics. We had to use this other duck face that we had to go through like this 6-month-long approval process to be able to use. So like we wanted to get the duck face on the chairs. Nope, couldn't do that. Sorry. Okay, well, we just got regular green chairs. Our jerseys, we had to get like super special approval to get the logo on for stuff like that. So that's a situation that is very unique to a larger school. And I'm almost safe to say an Oregon school for sure.
But there's always a thing. And this is important for all educators to realize too, whether you're doing collegiate or whether you're doing it at a K-12 level. I found recently my thing because we went and got our esports jersey design done, worked with a company who reached out to us, and Zero Gen has been phenomenal. I mean,
awesome.
Our kids were like Darren at Zero Gen is just like, hey, I'll work with your kids to help design a jersey that you're all going to like. And your kids are going to have a big part in that. Well, we got everything designed and we set up an online store because we have additional swag, right? And it's like, hey, this is great. Athletic directors freaked out.
Yep.
We have a contract with blah, 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 and you have to go through our person that we're contracted with. And my response was, I'm not athletics.
Yeah.
I'm not. Our esports program is under the Department of Digital and Virtual Learning, under the Chief Academic Office. You're under Chief of Schools Office, over athletics and activities.
Yep.
You're a completely different group. I don't have to answer to you.
Yep.
So there are those things that, especially in bigger school districts, maybe not so much small school districts, but in bigger school district, those like, a surprise moment. And just like with you, that was my surprise moment that I've had recently, which kind of really sprung up at me. And it did put up, as you said, a brick wall or just a speed bump along the way, along all the process. Never would have thought in a million years, though, that the school would have a problem with, or not even own the logo. That's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah, that was, we had some of the sponsorship folks from athletics get mad because they found out we were talking to Red Bull about a deal. They're like, hey, you can't accept that. And I was like, we have nothing to do with you. Like, they're like, we'll come shut you down. I was like, you can't. They probably could have, because the school has a deal with Pepsi. Pepsi ended up working with us, so it kind of moved that through. But, you know, there was some pressure from outside once they kind of saw what was happening. So I'll lay this out. Everything we had to do, minus the construction of the esports lounge, was on a $0 budget. So like our jerseys, the computers, the backpacks, the couches, the TVs, like I had to find partners and sponsors for that. Wow. Within that process, there was restrictions of who I was allowed to contact, who I couldn't contact. Nike, super not allowed to talk to Nike on that one. Certain contracts that the school has.
Be all over this.
Yeah. Nike China is all over esports. Nike US, not so much. There are almost two different companies. I couldn't outreach to them. If somebody put us in contact with them, which happened, or if they reached out to us, it would be different. But any of my efforts with that were, here's like a stock jersey vendor, go talk to them for stuff like that.
Wow.
So we had to follow a lot of the kind of, procedures, the red tape, if you will, to do a lot of the things that we wanted to do. And it made it unbelievably challenging. And, some of my friends that work at smaller schools are like, yeah, that doesn't exist for us. Like, we kind of do what we want because it's there. And I was like, yeah, like that's one of the differences is, I had a lot of, and so, some of our students would get frustrated. Like, what do you mean we don't have our jerseys yet? How come this isn't done yet? Where's this? We had to kind of explain, look, we're taking this giant idea and trying to squeeze it into the university structure. That's very hard to do in a short amount of time. So, I mean, there were so many bumps along the way. And part of that's on me because I never worked in higher ed before. I was like, yeah, sure. All right, whatever. Boom, here we go. Oh, our procurement process is like a 7-week time to, we need them tomorrow. It's like, nope, sorry, this is how this goes. So it was interesting learning that. At the time it was a headache, but now it's like, wow, I learned so much from that. To see like the processes and what goes on at a big time school like that has mega $1 million contracts in place with companies and vendors and stuff like that. Shout out to HyperX and Mountain Dew Amp Game Fuel, who are our partners for that. They provided us with so much equipment and furniture and TVs to help us do what we got to do. If they didn't come on board, we would have had a hard time getting where we wanted to go with, even just getting our headsets.
Yeah, that's
so.
Now, it is, I think, because, like, for example, what I'm hearing you say right now, David, is that if you had it to do all over again, you are much better prepared for that big launch, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like with our program in Rockford, when we started, I call it my 1.0 esports experience, was getting the program going in Rockford, and it was all about the computers and what league are we going to play. Yep. Coming to Racine, though, it was like, okay, wait, let's take a step back and let's really feel like what we can do here, and let's try to work where this is going to fit best and how we're going to do it. But the Oregon program in the long term proved not to be sustainable for I don't know what reason, right? But is the program still operating, or is it transforming, or what is the current state? Because you're no longer there, but it's not to say that you did anything wrong. I want to make sure that's clear. But what's going on now with the program as best you understand it? Was it a change in focus or what?
Yeah, so things were coming along awesome. Like in late February, it just opened up the Esports Lounge. We had just had our big business conference that had a couple hundred people at it and industry speakers from all over the country. The hype was all there. This thing was rolling. We were crushing every facet of success we could possibly imagine. And then a global pandemic comes along, and that just destroyed the financial structure. I don't know the right word to use, the finances of the school as a whole. So they started cutting stuff left, right, and center. Unfortunately, I was lost in the shuffle with that, where, hey, your contract's up in July, and that's going to be the end of it because we're in a hiring freeze. So they couldn't rehire me. They couldn't do a new contract, and they were trying to find ways to save money. So where the program is now is it still exists. It's still like a sanctioned program by the school. There is no staff member for it. And it's all kind of student driven. They basically took some of the bigger facets of the job that I was doing. They assigned it to like 7 other existing staff members, and then put like 4 or 5 students in charge of some other stuff. And they're just kind of trying to get by with what they can. I'm hoping that the structure that I laid, that the groundwork that I did there is enough to keep the program afloat. And I think it will be, right? If it came from students having a love for this, if that's still there, it's going to be able to move on. Sure, it might not be as good as it would have with, a dedicated staff member there. Competitive, maybe there's some tournaments they won't be allowed to play in. Obviously, nobody's on campus right now because of, the whole Corona thing going on. So it's not like they're missing out on a whole lot anyways. Yeah, I'd still love to be there. That's my baby, right? Like I built that from the ground up from day one, mostly on my own, with the help of some amazing students along the way. But it's a business, right? School is a business. And I understood that, their financial, like a couple hundred people lost their jobs. So it wasn't like it was, I was the only guy getting thrown out there. Like I felt, we had a big meeting that morning and my boss was crying and everybody was all, because it was big changes happening all at once. So I don't know, what the future holds for UO Esports. I'm hoping that, it keeps on keeping on and eventually the school puts some finances into it where they can hire coaches, they can do scholarships, they can do all the stuff that the top tier programs are doing. Cause that was my goal. Look, I knew year one, the school wanted to dip their toes in the water. And, I didn't have a budget to hire coaches. I didn't have a budget to go do recruiting. I wanted to go do recruiting. I missed doing that for football. I was fired up to go do that. And we had plans to do that. Until Corona came. We had plans to figure out, okay, how are we going to get coaches? What are we going to do for scholarships? We were working with Riot. We were working with Nike. We were working with other places for summer camps. Like we had all this great stuff planned. Corona came along and wiped it all out. And that's what caused, the bricks to all fall down is the global pandemic. And it did that to the entire world, right? But it had a unique impact on us where you see a lot of other schools doubling, tripling down on esports because it's like the only thing they have going. The amount of promotion that we got, during that spring was incredible because literally it was the only thing happening. Like intramurals and PE and rec were, hey, if you play video games, join these tournaments, we did 9 community tournaments, join these tournaments, get together, have fun. They used our Discord as like an onboarding platform for new students because they were like, well, we were going to do Facebook, but like we heard kids don't use Facebook anymore and they use this Discord thing. We know you guys have a really big Discord. Can we like have some of our like school ambassadors in there and like funnel new students? So I'm like, yeah, of course. Like I wanted this whole thing to help out the school as a whole.
The potential of nightmares for that though.
Oh, yep. So, yep.
Here's a great thing though. I'm taking away from all this, David, again, because of no fault of your own. And again, it's not that the will wasn't there at the university necessarily, but you're right. The uncertainty of this time that we are in right now, I could not hear enough from April, May, and June how people were boldly saying that esports was COVID proof. Like this is COVID proof. And I'm like, maybe I wouldn't even say at the professional level, like there's still going to be dollars that's coming in. Right. But nothing is COVID proof about this. At the scholastic level, I may say it's at best resistant because again, we're able to do things right now because we don't have to be in a face-to-face environment. Right. This is the only competition that we have open right now.
Right.
But the reality is, as you said, universities have limited budgets. Even though it's the University of Oregon, a big time program with endowments and everything else, they still have to operate on a budget. And they're still going to have priorities. And they still have to, again, serve the student population as best they can with what they've got available. And so it is really important that, again, people learn from this that just because you find something to be the best, like your community is solid, right? It's grassroots, it's loved. The people that you're involved with really love it. That doesn't mean the people who are making the budgetary decisions always agree with that either. I walk around on eggshells because in the face of a $9 million budget deficit last year from the school district, we had a $150,000 budget, which to me was like Christmas. I was like, holy cow, my God, I went from having nothing to having $150,000. But as I tell my general managers, every time we do something that is incorrect, it blows back on us 100 times bigger. Right. It leaves and sticks in somebody's mind that we don't know what we're doing or we don't know how to do things. We all have to, especially people who are just stepping into this, who are coming out and saying, oh, well, we'll just do X, Y, or Z. This is a fragile egg. It is incredible. You have to protect it. You have to promote it. You have to put it in the best light because unfortunately there will be instances where it doesn't get seen in the best light. And it's going to be very easy for one person to just go, I don't like that thing.
Yep.
And do away with it.
That's it.
So that's why I say, David, this is a perfect for those big schools out there who are wanting to launch into collegiate esports, because it's going to happen. Callum Fletcher, we had him on a few weeks ago. And here's the other thing too that you said that I thought was really important, that they have pushed the work off onto 7 other people and students. Callum Fletcher can compete with that. Because you're going to talk to a kid, like you're 18 years old or 17 years old and you're thinking about going to the University of Oregon for esports, and you're going to talk to another 17 or 18 or 19-year-old person about this. Or you're going to talk to Callum Fletcher, who's been doing this for several years and is a director of program and has coaches that he can go, well, talk to this coach, we'll talk to this person. That's where the competition is, right? The student run stuff is nice for club experience, but if you're going to have this varsity experience that you had designed, it has to be, as you were saying earlier, it has to be taken seriously. It has to be as serious as what you do with the football. If the football team was turned over to the grad assistants and the quarterback, you would have nobody coming to the university. You would have some kids, but you wouldn't have the top 5 program of the United States there. So there is so much, David, that I take away from first of all, your willingness to share this story, because it is a great rise and a very fast fall, and it's no fault of your own. I want to make sure everybody understands that this is not David's fault. COVID is not your fault, David.
Oh, all right, good. Phew.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah. But again, the knowledge that you have, if I even as a consultant, even if I needed a consultant, the knowledge that you have for how to now navigate that system, for how to work within the system, to work with the grassroots, that's something that there's a lot of colleges, I think, especially big time schools, who may be thinking about this, who go, that's the person who knows how to do this and can make it easy for us. I don't have to bother with this anymore.
Yeah, that's why they tabbed me at UO. They're like, look, we want to do this, but you know how to do all of it and we don't. So like, let's make it happen. And we did some awesome stuff. We did some amazing stuff that hopefully continues to impact and create a positive experience. Everything I did, whether it was for the community, whether it was for the competitive teams, the lounge, whatever, the singular goal was to create as big of a positive impact on as many different students as possible. Every decision I made had that as like the core principle behind it. Is this just going to impact 3 of our players, or is it going to impact 150 kids in general? And that was kind of what drove what I did. And you look at these different schools. Every different school has a different goal for why they're doing it. Right. Some schools, it's a revenue play. Hey, we want to bring more kids in, recruit them, and now we got a bunch of tuition dollars coming. Other ones, it's more, we want to compete. We want to win. We want championships. We want to be the best. Other ones, it's we have some great academic stuff going on. We have an amazing broadcasting program or an art program. What a great way to start creating content with that. Or it's, we have this phenomenal computer science program. We have a giant club. We want to serve them better. Every school is different with how I do it. And something you said that's unbelievably key is listening to the voices of your students, right? They're the ones, they're your, customer, so to speak, from a business sense. You need to serve them properly. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Like I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but there was a school recently, a bigger school, some would say, that sanctioned esports in some capacity, and they didn't even talk to their students at all. They actually shut down their club, and the students freaked out, holy cow.
I saw that story, and I think we've called it out. I'll call it out. You don't have to. It was the University of South Florida, Tampa, right? Yep. Yeah, that was surprising.
That was crazy, because you had Marcus on. I know Marcus pretty well. I talked to him shortly. We talked about that. That's kind of what got us connected. Was we saw that on LinkedIn, and we were like, "Holy cow, dude! What's So me and him had he's a great guy, by the way. We had an awesome chat. There's a case study of kind of what not to do. Another good example of what not to do. And again, you see a lot of schools doing this. They hire a e-gaming head coach, and it's their part-time IT woman that is the head coach of 7 different games. It's what? Does your football coach also coach your basketball, swimming, and softball teams? Because that's not how this works.
David, I'll one up on another one here. We'll dunk on this.
Sure.
In my own area, Marquette. Marquette made a huge announcement, and I know a lot of kids from the club up there, really good kids at the club up there. And Marquette, to their credit, said, you know what? We're going to be the first Big East school that's going to make varsity esports a thing. This was about 2 years ago. And it was assigned, the person to oversee it, the faculty member who was assigned to oversee it, also runs media for the basketball teams.
Okay.
How you set up an esports program when that person has that job and no budget to do. They had they had the lounge. I sat in that lounge. I sat and learned about Marquette Esports. This is something that can generate amazing press. It can generate amazing interest in a school, but we become responsible for what we tame. We have to follow through with what we say, or else kids will get turned off. And that doesn't just stick for a little bit. That turns off kids for a long time if there's this, again, this thing getting pulled. I can't imagine, David, for some of your kids, when, it feels, I guess, maybe they take a step back at Oregon a little bit because of this. So it's again, we're doing this for kids. We can't just do this halfway and think, oh, I'm going to walk away from this when it gets tough. We have to see it through. So David Gugliotti, where can people find out more information about you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at David G Esports. You can add me on LinkedIn. Just search my name. You probably see my dad too. We have the same name, but you can find me. I'm the younger, more handsome looking. Well, he's probably more handsome than me, but the younger looking one. Those are the two best ways to get in touch with me and see where I end up next. I'm looking forward to the next step in my journey, wherever that may be, whether it's with a professional organization, a brand, or another college. I'm excited to see where I end up next.
And I'm excited to see where you end up as well, because again, that skill set that you developed over the last few years, MBA plus launching at a big school, an esports program that was taken down by something completely out of your own control. David Gugliotti, thank you so much for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really, really appreciate it. It was awesome to come on. I've listened to a bunch of other episodes, so I'm happy I get my own.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.